Alright, let's see if this wants to work. There's always comments before I even turn my head to the camera. So, can you guys hear me okay? I did a test and I could hear me, but I want to make sure you could hear me okay. I'm not ignoring you guys. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. So give me some feedback if you could hear me. Yes, no? Can you hear me? Yes, no? Hopefully yes. I hope it's a yes. You are not answering my question. Okay. Good. Because I don't want to make it through this and then all of a sudden it not work. Because that would be terrible. So, alright. So, hello. So, I wanted to do like a normal recorded video and edit it and stuff of me showing some of the cool things I got from my trip to Japan, because I got a lot of like weird stuff from thrift stores and geeky things. But I never had a lot of time to like sit down, edit something or whatever. So what I decided to do was just do a live stream. So that's what this is going to be. I got some cool things at like the Akihabara electronic district. A lot of used stuff from thrift stores and things. So I want to show that. So yeah, that's what this is going to be. So let's see. Anything else I want to mention before I get started? I guess not. I'm using OBS for the first time to stream this. I hope the quality is good. So let me know in the comments if anything goes weird, and I'll try and adjust accordingly. So, hey Stanley, thanks for joining. Ryan, Mike, bunch of people here. Cool. I know it's kind of late, at least where I am. It's almost 11 p.m. But it's Friday night, so hopefully not a lot of you have to go to work tomorrow. So this is going to be good. And you people in different time zones, I guess it's not as late for you. But all right, so no, this is a glass of water, not vodka. My throat is a little dry, so that may change. Okay, so I went to Japan in June for about 2 weeks, late June, early July. I went with a bunch of friends, and it was my first time. I went to Japan originally in 2015, and I was like overwhelmed of everything. The sights, the culture, the stores, everything. I was just like overwhelmed. So yeah, so when I went back this second time, I was less shocked and more, okay, I could handle this. Let me go at my own pace and find some things. But all right, so this little guy here is something I won in one of the claw machines in the arcades, and I always screw up the name of the game. It's either Puyo Puyo or Payu Payu, or I think it's Puyo Puyo. But he's like the little mascot from the old puzzle game from the Sega arcades and the Sega Genesis back in the day, and they do some modern games with them too. I think there was a Tetris one, but that was pretty fun to get. It was hard. I mean, used up some money, but no, I did not pick up any Mac models. Some of the comments I was hearing before I went there was don't expect to see any Apple stuff at all, and I'm like, okay, well that's disappointing. But I'm not going there just to shop, so I was fine not expecting to bring home a Mac or whatever. But I did find some cool stuff. So I've been talking for too long. Let's get to some of this good stuff. So I have this little bag here. At the arcades, obviously the Sega arcades, they have bags that you can put your winnings in. So before I even won this little guy, I said, oh, let me take the bag because that's cool. I'm a huge Sega nerd. From back in the day, me and my brothers had a Sega system growing up. We didn't have a Nintendo system. So that's sort of gravitated to what I liked and what I used. I just got my job today. Cool. Congrats. So I'm going to read the comments as I go along. This is live. We're going to be interactive here. One of the exclusive things I picked up, thanks to a close friend of mine, I'm going to put his Instagram, if I could not tip over my water here. I'm going to put his Instagram in the chat so you can follow him. And let me bring that up here. Let's see. There we go. So I'm just copying this. I'm going to put this in the chat. So this guy was nice enough to meet up with me in Japan. We follow each other on Instagram for a while. He has a lot of cool Macs. I mean, insane. So obviously he lives in Japan because that's where we met. And he gave me 2 flyers. And if you were on the Mac Yak podcast a few weeks ago watching, you saw these. But so this is for the PowerBook 550C. This was a model that was exclusive to Japan. So let me just get up this thing here so I can see what I'm holding up on the center here. And so this is a flyer. And what's cool is it shows the different models. And it shows some of the printers and the monitors and the accessories. And it opens up here, which is really cool. And just like, so this is, you know, this is a Japan sold only. You know, wow, I cannot speak tonight. This model was only sold in Japan, so it's pretty cool seeing these advertisements for a model that we did not get in the United States. Also, the PowerBook 2400C had a model that was only in Japan. This is a flyer from that model, which is really cool. Yes, so I sort of brought home a blackbird. I brought back a photo of a blackbird. And for those of you who don't know, the blackbird is the nickname that people give the 5500C, because it is a black model. The other one's a sort of a smoky gray color. I think blackbird was actually the code name of that series of PowerBooks, so the name actually fits. But yeah, this is really cool stuff, and I'll have to scan these in at some point. But this was a really nice treat, so that was really cool. Was there a lot of anime? There was. It's Japan of all places. It's, you know, one of the places, you know, where you're going to expect to find a lot of it. In Akihabara especially, it's very otaku there. You know, a lot of people go there for anime, you know, buying comics and, you know, maid cafes and all sorts of weird stuff. I mean, that's what that whole town is about, you know. And there's a lot of electronic stuff there because it used to be like that was where you bought your appliances. That was where you bought your electronics, your computers and stuff like that. It's unfortunately sort of shifting away from that because online is everything these days. But it was really cool to still see some of the old buildings and the signs, Electric Town, you know, all these things that was, you know, sort of showing its past, which was really cool. And of course, where I hung out a lot in Akihabara were these little, sort of like a flea market. There were these little shops and stands inside this building. And it was just a crazy amount of just like little stalls everywhere. And that's where I found the coolest stuff. Did they ever sell a 2400C with the G3 there? I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not really familiar with the 2400C. I don't have one. But let's get to this stuff because I'm going to be talking forever if I don't. So the first thing I'm going to pick out of the box here, this was a bit of a silly purchase. It was $10. I couldn't really find out any information about this, and I'm like kicking myself thinking, should I just go back and get it? And I ended up getting it. So this is what is supposed to be a calendar. I think it was like on a roll of tape for the Sega Dreamcast, and this was given to the press. It was not something that you could buy or anything, which is why I ended up picking it up, because I thought, okay, that's a neat little thing. It's in this weird triangle box, and I'm going to open it carefully because not everything is inside of it. I'll try not to rip it here. But what it did have was like, okay, that's pretty cool. But I didn't really open it and inspect it until I got home. But so there's like this silver tape, and it's basically like a calendar, but it's Dreamcast branded, of course. You see the sort of on the inside. Now, there is some little labels and stuff in here. and so there used to be more in this box. But I'm a big Sega nerd, so I'm like, okay, for $10, and it was even less when you count the currency exchange. Okay, it's a neat thing I'll pick up and put with my Sega collectibles on the shelf. So I thought that was pretty neat. I've never seen it before. I tried to Google while I was there to find out what it was before I bought it, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to get it. So I ended up getting it. And I don't have a plan for taking things out of this box and putting them somewhere. So we'll figure out what we're doing. Next thing. All right, so this is the first Apple-related thing that I guess I'm going to pick out of this box. I don't know why I got this, to be honest with you. It was 50 cents, the equivalent of 50 US cents. It was dirt cheap. It's a time capsule CD, DVD rather, with the manual. So obviously it's in Japanese. I could probably download this from Apple's website. But I was buying a bunch of other CDs, and my thought process at the time was, okay, well, I could use this to pad the other CDs that I'm putting in my suitcase, so if this breaks, I'm not heartbroken. But this was the first Apple thing I bought, so I was thinking, all right, if this is the only thing I see, I'll get that. Did I see any cheese grater iMacs? iMacs? Do you mean Mac Pros? I did see 2 Mac Pros there in one of the thrift stores called Hard Off. There's a junk section in the basement, which is basically untested stuff or things that don't work or partially work. There were 2 Mac Pros. One was a 2009, one was a 2008. 2008 was about $50, 2009 was $100. As I was standing there, somebody bought the 2009. When I went back the next day, somebody bought the 2008. So they went very quickly. Yeah, so this was 50 yen, so about 50 cents. I also got this. This was $1. It was a Sega Saturn magazine CD. So their publications, they would have magazines of video game stuff. They didn't often include demo CDs. So again, I like Sega stuff, so that was a pretty cool little thing to get, and it was a cheap little souvenir. This also is something that I was reading about, Virtual Fighter history. So it's a Sega Saturn disc, and I have to turn on Do Not Disturb. Turn on Do Not Disturb.
Okay, I turned on Do Not Disturb.
Forgot to do that. I'm turning into bad examples. Anyway, so yeah, that's just another disc I picked up. This was cool. It's like a neon floppy disk, and it looks much brighter and cooler in person, but it's like a laser cut piece of plastic, and it was $9, so I was like, yeah, that's kind of pricey. But the guy that was running that booth, I saw on Twitter. He was featured on that Strange Parts YouTube channel. They did a collab and they went to Akihabara. The guy's name is Ken. Let me see if I can find a link, and I'll put it in the description, in the chat here. He does like Macintosh repair and stuff like this, and he has this own little shop that he runs, and it's really cool that there's still somebody doing that type of stuff. And it was really excited to actually see what was going on there. I don't have it on hand. I can't find it. I'll tweet it out later. $20 for a mouse pad. I paid about $15, but it was a vintage mouse pad. It was Star Wars, so. It was just one of those things. I was looking through an old magazine, so an advertisement for this old Star Wars Rebel Assault mouse pad, and I'm like, I have to have it, and it was on eBay, so that looked out. I looked out. And here's also something I got from that guy's shop. So this is an Airport Extreme card that was sold in Japan, and this is you'll see the label. It actually doesn't say Airport; it says AirMac, and that's because in Japan another product was already using the Airport name, so AirMac is what they decided to call it. And from what I understand, this should work fine in a U.S. Mac, because the antenna ranges and everything are actually handled by software. But I thought that was pretty neat. This was $5, so 500 yen, and a little under $5. So I'm like, okay, I'll pick that up. And I previously picked up a third-party AirMac Airport 802.11b compatible card for like the older systems. So I think this is a nice little thing that'll go with that. Yeah, I am going to do a video on my Mac collection. On my Patreon, there's currently a goal that if I get, I think it's set at $50 or something like that, if I get that many patrons, I'll release an exclusive tour of my collection. You see a lot of it in the backgrounds of my videos and stuff like that, but it also helps me prepare for that video because I'm organizing things a lot. So there will be a video where I do show some of that, just not right now. Hey guys, so I kept buying some things at that store, and the guy was very nice, and he gave me this, and so this is another Sega thing that I was geeking out over, and this is a CDR, and you're thinking, what's so special about a CDR? Well, it's not really anything too special, but it's a Sega Saturn branded CDR, and since the system was disc-based, what you would do is you use a special boot disk on your system if you were developing games, and it would have the system boot, and then you would place in the latest beta version of your game or whatever you were developing that you burned on a normal CD. And you know, as a video game developer, you'd buy them in packs, and then you'd be able to, you know, give them out or test them with your team. So I thought this was really cool. He gave it to me for free. It was a very nice gesture of him. And it just made me go back to the store and buy more stuff. So, watched your video on CPU upgrades. I don't know if I did a video on CPU upgrades. That might be Greg you're thinking of. But, yeah. Moving along. Other things I bought in Akihabara. I had no idea what this was. No idea what this was. These are magneto-optical discs. Think sort of like an Iomega Zip Disk. These were a few dollars, and there were 3 of them, and I'm like, you know what? I don't know what that is. This looks cool. I'll get it. So I don't have a drive for these, but I just never seen these before in my life. So I thought these were pretty cool, and so I just picked them up. So just a weird little thing. Let's see what else. Japanese version of Sonic Adventure. I just thought that was neat. This was bought at Book Off, which is the equivalent of a thrift store for books, DVDs, stuff, music, stuff like that. I had a US equivalent of Sonic Adventure somewhere, so I was going to compare them, but I don't know where that is at this point. So, yeah, just you know, a Dreamcast game. So, a lot of video game stuff, but there is some Apple stuff we'll get to, but it's kind of the bottom of the bin there. So, I wonder if the CDR has special coding so the Sega can't read. From what I understand, that CDR disc is just a regular CDR disc. What makes that disc special is just the Sega label on it. That's it. How the Sega Saturn would read the disc is you, as a developer, would have a special key, or I don't know what they would call the disc, but it was like a special keyed boot disc that would be placed in the Saturn before you would place the standard disc in. That disc would say, like, okay, you're a developer, now insert your burn disc, and that's how it would work, from what I understand. Okay, let's see, what else do I got here? This is bought at the Hard Off store. This is a Gameboy link cable, and it was just cool in the box. It was $3, so I'm like, all right, why not? At this point, I'm starting to think, how am I going to bring all this stuff home in my luggage? And as you'll see, that gets a little worse. From the same store I got the floppy disk stuff in, I got this. This is a keyboard for a Sega Dreamcast, which is pretty cool. I have $52 on Patreon to make the video. I haven't checked my Patreon. I don't think I have that much. If I do, oh crap, I'll have to make the video. Wait, I have a bunch of notifications. This is worrying me now. Wait a second. Greg, you crazy? What did you do that for? Thanks, man. Jeez. Way to put me under the gun to make that video now. Oh my god. Thanks, Greg. I appreciate it, but you didn't have to do that. That's really cool. I mean, you're going to delete that right after this stream, I hope. Now I have to make a walkthrough video. I'll just have to end this now, but thanks, man. That's really cool. I forgot what I was saying. Make the video. Jeez, way to put me on the spot. I'll get you back somehow. What was I saying? Oh yeah, the stupid thing I'm holding. Thanks, Greg. I sincerely appreciate it. Jeez, that's very nice of you. Yeah, so I got this Dreamcast keyboard, which I can't seem to hold up at all. Not until next month. Yes, it's my incentive. So this is just a keyboard for a Dreamcast, but it's tiny. Here's like an Apple design keyboard. You see the difference here. So the reason I got it is because it's compact. I already had a Dreamcast keyboard, but this is a smaller one, and this is a much nicer build quality. It is yellowed, but it's cool because it has the English characters and the Japanese characters on it, and it does work. And I am messing with DreamPi, which is a way to get your Dreamcast online via a Raspberry Pi, because the Dreamcast only has a dial-up modem by default, and even if you get the broadband one, it's not compatible with a lot of stuff. So for $5, I picked this up, and it was from the same guy that gave me the other stuff. So that was neat. Oh, thank you. Someone recognized the Venture Brothers shirt. Yeah, it's one of those things where there's not a lot of like Venture Brothers merchandise. For those of you who don't know, it's a cartoon on Adult Swim, Cartoon Network. And they do this thing called a shirt club. It's a little pricey, but you basically subscribe and you get shirts in the mail, like a dozen or so. So whenever I can, I do that. They do it like once every 4 years. So I thought that was neat. So yeah, thanks. All right, this was a little pricey. I think it was like 20 bucks or so. There's a chain of stores in Japan called Super Potato, and I think there's one in Seattle as well. And it's like retro video game stuff. Now, when I went to Japan in 2015, the prices for retro video game stuff was much lower than it is now. I'm talking drastically lower. So, for example, Book Off, which is like a thrift store in Japan, they had, in 2015, they had a Pocket Game Boy for about $5. Pocket Game Boy is just a black and white Game Boy. I have a Game Boy somewhere here. Here it is. This is a Game Boy Color, but Pocket Game Boy is similar to this. They had one for $5. Now, when I went back in July, a Game Boy Color, similar system, was like $60. I was like, that's a huge jump in price. And a lot of the things were very expensive. So when I was in Japan last time, I would see like a Japanese counterpart of a game and go, oh, it has a different label, it has a different booklet. That looks pretty cool. $5, I'll pick it up. When I went this time, it was like $30, $20, $10. I'm like, you know what? I'm probably not going to do anything with this except display it on the shelf. I'm going to leave it here. So unfortunately, or for better or worse, I didn't buy too many video game stuff. But what I did find is some specific things that I would use or would like to have, and I picked them up. So one of those is this backup RAM cartridge, and this is for the Sega CD. And so what this does is Sega CD games did not have a way to save anything other than the internal battery that was in the system. And when that battery died, that was it. You were done. You had no memory. Your save games would disappear. Your high scores and stuff would go away. This is a RAM cartridge that you could back up that battery information to. And some games actually required this. So this was in pretty good condition. I never saw one in the box. Alright, so yeah, I can explain this a little bit. So here's what the cartridge looks like. And you'll see there's a little price tag here. So I paid about 20, so it's 2,200 yen. So I paid probably around 20 bucks for this. And then there's this little tag in Japanese. Now it's handwritten, so my Google Translate app and my less than stellar Japanese was not able to translate it correctly. However, what I was able to figure out by talking to the person at the counter was that a label or a sticker was not included. So I'm like, you know what? If a sticker's not included, I'll get it. And what it turns out is there's this label that you could put on the cartridge, and it was already put on the cartridge. So, okay, that's fine with me. I don't care. But this is neat. I want to play around with the Sega CD more. I had one growing up, and it was a lot of fun to play with. So I'm thrilled to have a RAM backup card. I almost bought a game at Book Off for like $5, but it was all in Japanese, and it was a real-time strategy game or something. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not gonna buy the game just because it has this logo on it. I'll pass. Do you have an iMac G3 clamshell key lime? Do I? I have 2 of them. I had one when it was fairly new. It was a refurbished model, maybe a few months or a year after it came out. That was my main laptop for the longest time. And a few years ago, I picked up one off Craigslist for under $100. I love that machine. I love that color. So yes, one of my online usernames used to reference that computer directly. So more video game stuff. Again, just because the cover is cool. Star Wars Arcade for the Sega 32X. This again, yeah, it's about $17. This was also at that Super Potato store. They know what the stuff is kind of going for, so they price it right up there. So there weren't any big deals I was getting at this store. But again, this was kind of cool. It was in pretty good condition. It's a cardboard box, so a lot of these just like are completely destroyed. I do have an American version of this, and the box art is very different. So I thought, okay, that's cool to get. All right, here back to some computer hardware stuff. An Iomega Zip Disk. Just nothing too fancy here. Just a zip disk. It's, you know, PC formatted, but it's new in the package, so I thought that's pretty cool. It's a blue one, which is neat. So it's hard to tell there, but that's the color of the disc there. Wait for the camera to focus. There we go. Yeah, so that was pretty cool. I think it was like $4. They had Iomega 250 disc and some other discs, but they were expensive. So I just bought this one. What else I got here? This I got at one of the electronics stores. It's a USB 3.0 external DVD burner. So I took out the DVD drive from my MacBook Pro, and I currently have an external USB 3.0 Blu-ray burner, but it's an external one with the external power cord. And this, although it just does DVDs, it's USB 3, so I'm like, you know what? Not a bad idea to pick it up. I think it was like $10. So I'm like, all right, that's pretty cool. Will you ever take it out of the package? This you know, I might, but I might not. I mean, I have so many zip disks, so. Okay, I should probably have taken better care of putting them in the bin, but don't worry, these were not in the bin long. I will show some related stuff to this soon, but these are 45 RPM records, and they're just really cool. I just love the artwork on this. This is The Empire Strikes Back, and I think there's like 1 or 2 tracks on here. This was $2, so definitely something I picked up right away. This is Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Again, pretty affordable at $4, 450 yen rather. And I just like the cover of these. I mean, they're just really cool. I mean, these are, you know, not new. These are from the 80s. They're not reproductions or anything. So the condition was actually, you know, pretty astounding. And yeah, so that was pretty cool to find. Yeah, some of the zip drives are pretty bad. A lot of the newer ones, when they change some of the internals. I personally have a few that have died, but others work fine. So I'm glad that I have some that are still working. Oh, these are really cool. So the guy that Ken, who works at, I don't know if Ken's his real name, but that's what the shop said. Ken in Akihabara, he has this little shop, and I bought a bunch of these things from him. That's where I got the Dreamcast stuff and the keyboard and things. He made these cables, and these little cables are, well, let's see if you guys could guess what these cables are for. So you might recognize these connectors, but these little white connectors, what do you think these are for? It's for a video game console. I'll give you that. But what do you think these are for? And when I saw them, I didn't know at first. But when I realized what they were, I picked them up. Give you guys a second. There's a delay, of course, with the stream. Got yourself a original blue iMac G3, $5 at a garage sale. Nice, nice. Yeah, the Nintendo Wii, exactly. So what these do is it plugs into the Nintendo Wii remote, and then these are video game, controller ports that you can plug your classic video game controller into. So here's one for the Sega Saturn, and here's one for the Sega Genesis. And so what you could do is plug this into the Wii controller, and then plug your retro controller in, which is great for like virtual console games. And so this guy, these are clearly homemade, which just makes it cooler to me. You could see, you know, he cut and soldered the wires together, put some heat shrink over it and stuff. These were $2 each, so I ended up buying 2 Saturn ones and 2 Genesis ones because I'm like, when am I going to see these again? These are just really cool. And it's just something very unique. They're handmade by this guy, so I thought that was really neat, and I picked those up. I have to test them yet. Just some of the things that I found in that Akihabara place was insane. It was like going through a Radio Shack, but like times a million. I have a multimeter that I wanted to fix, but it needs a new 9-volt battery holder. Well, that's exactly what I got. And I think it was like 40 cents or something. So obviously probably get it cheaper online or whatever, but I thought, you know what, I'm here. I need that part. I'm going to take it home. The TSA is going to look through my bag a little weird, but I got it, and it was a nice pickup. Some more video game stuff. Let's see. Virtua Cop. This was in the untested section. 50 cents. I like the artwork alone. I don't need the game to work. Virtua Fighter 2 for the Sega Saturn. Virtua Cop is also for the Sega Saturn. And Fighters Megamix for the Sega Saturn. So, yeah, this was $1. This was $2. This was 50 cents, roughly. So, yeah, that was pretty nice to find. Yes, another live stream already. I didn't want to record this and edit it. I'm lazy. So, we'll do in a live stream. Why not? And I hope the quality is good. It's my first time using OBS on this Mac. Last time I tried to use it, the PC died. So, I'm hoping that that this is working out okay. Stanley is half awake, and it's 4 in the morning. Ooh, Stanley. Sorry, that's rough. Hopefully I'm not putting you to sleep. If not, go to bed, and you can watch the stream when you wake up. You're going to stay and watch. That's very nice of you. Yes, these are all Saturn games. What did he get so far? Well, you can rewind, I think. Maybe. But so far, a few video games, an external DVD burner, Iomega Zip Disk, Gameboy cable, some CDs. Now we're getting to some geeky stuff here. So we're getting to. It is not. It is upstairs if you would like me to get it, but it is upstairs. I wasn't going to show it off because it's not mine. It's going to be yours. Some other games here. This is that little character you'll recognize. This little doll here. That's what he's from. So these are for the Game Gear. I think it's Puyo Puyo or whatever, the puzzle game. So these are just 2 of them for the Game Gear, for the Sega Game Gear. So I thought that was neat. When did he go to Akihabara? I followed a few weeks ago, so I missed it. Yeah, I was there a few times, and I just kept going back and taking photos. The problem is, I would like use my phone until the battery died completely, and so I wasn't posting online as much, and so I was on vacation too, so I wanted to like sort of disconnect a little bit. But I will probably do another video. I'll probably actually take this live stream and cut in bits from there or something. So I'm recording this as I'm broadcasting it. So little behind the scenes info there. But yeah, I went to Akihabara a few times, but I was also there to sightsee, so I wasn't going to shop the entire time. But you wanted to see it. A properly modded Game Gear. Oh, with a good screen and capacitors. I have like. Here, let me let me show you the Game Gears I have. I'll be right back. Amuse yourselves for a moment. So, Game Gears, yes, I have a few Sega Game Gears. And why do you need a few Sega Game Gears? Well, the capacitors in them go bad, and either the screen stops working or the sound stops working. So you need to fix that. You're welcome. Thanks for subscribing. So, Game Gears. Well, I have a whole bin of Game Gears. So, I was a Game Gear kid. I loved the Game Gear. My brother had one growing up, so I was obsessed with them. So whenever I would find one dirt cheap, I would pick it up, because whenever I would get one, they wouldn't really work. So, yeah, I have a bunch of Game Gears here. The blue ones are the World Series 1995, I think. Sports editions. They came packed with the game. I think, yeah, this is my original one. This has a little handle I put on there. Has the mismatched back. But this is my original Game Gear from when I was a kid. This was my first one. I don't know where, I don't remember how I got it. It was used, of course. It was not new. But yeah, this is my Game Gear. And there's a bunch of others in here. Got some adapters. Here's the TV tuner adapter. So you can watch TV on the Game Gear. We'll get to that in a minute. And another TV tuner adapter. I always wanted one of these, and I found two, like, right next to each other. I know, you guys are like, this guy's insane, and I am, I'm sorry. But even the bin is labeled Sega Game Gear. So, this is where I keep the majority of my Game Gears. There's probably one or two floating around the house. But there is a difference between them. They did remanufacture these in the early 2000s in South America. And they were very popular there, which is why they remanufactured them. And so the remanufactured ones have different internals, so they don't work with like the TV tuner adapter or some things. What's cool about the Game Gear is you can play Sega Master System games right on it. They're pin compatible, so there's just this adapter. You plug the games into here, and you plug this into the Game Gear, and you can play them. So thought that was pretty cool. So yeah, so I'm a Game Gear nut. I have a bunch of Game Gears. And a lot of them have issues, and I'm going to have to have a recapping party. Maybe I'll do that live. Yeah, the TV tuner is really sweet. Yeah, the Game Gear emulates pretty well, so so that's just like a great little way to play them. So the TV tuner adapter grabs TV signals off the air, you know, like you would do with the television antenna. So it's live television. We'll get to that in a second, I promise you. But this is heavy, and I already brought it out. I want to show you. This I got at the Hard Off store. It was $8. How could I say no? And it nearly cost me $200 in overstuffed baggage fees at the airport. So I don't know if that would have been worth it. But this is a slide scanner. This is a Nikon Cool Scan, negative film and slide scanner. This is a LS10E. Unfortunately, when I looked up the specs, it was very similar to one I already have. But it turned on in the store. It was listed as junk. It was about $8. It's SCSI, so that's cool. Probably the only SCSI thing I saw when I was in Japan. But it's really neat. Obviously, it plugs into a computer. There's some old Mac software that can work with this. I'll find a way to integrate this into my channel somehow. So, yeah, maybe I'll do it live. Oh, you mean live TV, Greg? Yeah, it was the TV tuner adapters for live television over the air. Or live recapping party. Yeah, we can do that too. Yeah, so if you watch my Sony Walkman video, you'll see how I got around the problem of there not being any analog broadcasts anymore. So, spoiler alert, I got something to work. So I can do that with the Sega's the TV tuner adapter. But hold on that thought for a second, because where'd it go? So I showed you the Game Gears, which came up sort of organically. Well, look what I found in Japan. This is an in-box Sega Game Gear TV tuner. So when I saw this, I was like, holy crap, I need to get this. It was $20, so it was a little pricey. But I just love the packaging and the design of this thing. Just look at that. Isn't that cool? So yeah, this is the same thing. A very similar design. They are a little different design than the one we got in America. I have to do some research. I'm curious because I know the digital broadcast standards are different. I'm curious how different this is from the United States model we got and if they're interchangeable. I'm definitely going to plug this into a Game Gear and see if I can get a signal on it. But why I mentioned that. I'm not going to take that one out of the box because it's a little hard to get. But let me pull out one of the TV tuners here. Excuse me while I mess with the camera too. So, yeah, they look a little different. This one actually has some buttons on it, the Japanese one, but this doesn't. Yeah, so Ryan's talking about the RF antenna input. So that's exactly what this has. The Sega Game Gear TV tuner has an antenna input. So you could plug in an external antenna right here into the headphone looking jack there. But there's also an AV input. So if you had anything with composite video, you could plug it right in there and you could display anything that outputs an AV signal on your Game Gear. So I, at one point, plugged in the AV output to my clamshell iBook, or it was my PowerBook G4, and plugged it in here, and sure enough, you could watch whatever was on the laptop on the Game Gear. Sure, the Game Gear has a terrible passive matrix LCD screen, but I mean, hey, it worked. So we're not talking about the best quality here. So this one at least does have that input there, so you can view anything either from an external antenna or an AV input. Looking at this, I don't know if that switch is on the Japanese model. I don't know if there is, to be honest. I'll have to open this up one day and take a look. I want to do a video about it anyway. But yeah, so let me take this out. So yeah, Sega Game Gear, fun stuff. Oh, that's interesting. So yours does not have the AV input on your Game Gear TV tuner. Interesting. Well, maybe they made a few different models, but yeah. So that slide scanner was pretty cool. Yeah, tape the coax pin to the antenna, Greg. Yeah, that'll work. Yeah, and some of those slide scanners, they did make them that they just fit into the internal bay of the computer. I think that's the one I have. I don't have one in the big external case. So it was cool to have that. All right, next Mac item. This was something I have not seen before. And this was at the guy's shop that he had a bunch of Mac stuff. This was $3. I picked it up. And this is a Farallon Etherwave Mac PowerBook adapter. And from what I understand, this takes your normal serial port on your Mac or your PowerBook, and it gives you not one, but 2 Ethernet ports. So I didn't know that this thing existed because obviously the PowerBooks, the early ones, did not have Ethernet, and there was no PC card slot in the early ones. There is a power cord here, so it does need to be powered. But I want to try this out. I was very intrigued to see this. I do have a very similar one that has an AAUI connector here and no power cord that is just meant as an Ethernet transceiver, but this was something different. Yeah, I know the coax on the antenna works, so I will have to try that. Yeah, so I will try out the Japanese TV tuner as well and see if I can get a picture on that. Even if it doesn't pick up the same broadcast frequencies, I'm sure putting the wire right next to it should pick up something. But yeah, so I had no idea about this. It's a little beat up. The case is sort of opening there. But for $3, I'm not going to complain. Thankfully, it does have the voltage input on here, so I could find a power adapter that works with this. But it says it's up to 10 megabits per second, which isn't bad. So yeah, I was excited to see this Etherwave adapter. I'm definitely going to try it out. It's going to be a cool way to get one of my Macs online, I'm sure. So you'll be seeing this in the video once I figure out how to use that. Okay, this was not from Japan, but I picked this up recently. I just wanted to show it off. This is an Apple personal modem. So this is a dial-up modem. I think it's 1200 baud. And you have your phone jacks there, so one could go to the phone line, one could plug into a phone. You have a serial port on the back. There's this little removable power plug, so you can put the plug in there and then plug it into your outlet. Again, I did not pick this up in Japan. Someone on one of the Facebook groups found a bunch of old Apple stuff and they were selling it, and I picked this up with some other stuff I'll show off eventually. But just saw it upstairs when I was packing things to bring down here to show off you guys. I just thought it was very cool. I've seen these on eBay. They're not really worth anything because it's a 1200 baud modem, but I thought it was pretty neat. Yeah, SCSI to Ethernet adapters. I do have 2 of those from Asante. One's for a PowerBook and one is for a desktop. I will be doing a video on that sometime soon. I've actually had pretty good luck with those. They work pretty well. Okay, so yeah, they might not do TCP, but it'd be good to share files with if I could do that. But the Asante ones do TCP. I know I've done that with the SCSI to Ethernet ones. All right, some of the big things are out of the way. Now on to some little things. This is just a pouch. And the only reason I picked it up is because there's a little Sony Walkman logo there. And while I was in Japan, it was the 40th anniversary of the Sony Walkman. They actually had a little exhibit, which I was very, very happy to go and check out. They had, and I'll insert pictures on Twitter. Or no, I actually posted them already on Instagram, I think. If you look back a few weeks, they had an exhibit that was the 40th anniversary of the Walkman. So they had all these old Walkman products, cassette players, mini disc players, CD players. It was really cool. They had them all set up. You could actually listen to them. They had a little story about the music that was in there, or inspired by the artist that made it, or let's say an artist used a particular Walkman. It was talked about them and their music and stuff like that. But this is just a little pouch. It's Velcro up top and it has a lanyard. This was $1 in my Japan video I made. You could see me wearing one. This is an extra one I picked up because there was a bin of them and it was $1, and I'm like, why not? I guess I hoard weird things. But speaking of the Sony exhibit, there was a thing that you did at the Sony exhibit. It was a little, I guess you could call it like a walkthrough or whatever. But it was, I'm trying to think of the word. Wow, words escape me right now. It was like a scavenger hunt type thing. So you got a piece of paper, and there were 4 areas for stamps. And it was a small exhibit. It was like 2 floors. You would have to find the stamps and mark them on the paper. And if you brought them back to the desk, they gave you something. And so this is what they gave me. And it looks like a cassette. And it's in a cassette case. But what's inside is actually a little book, which is pretty cool. So you can see 1979 to 2019. This is the little anniversary booklet here. But what's cool is inside, let me see if I get it close to the camera here, is a little catalog or a little history showing you a lot of their products. I don't know if it's all of them, but isn't that cool? So, I mean, that was a little neat little prize. It was free. The exhibit was free. So it was very nice of them to have something like that. So I like their little 40th anniversary Walkman logo. I still have the paper that I had my stamps on, so I'll have to scan that in and show that. Yeah, scavenger hunt in the video. Yes, I did. I think show a little bit of that. I did that. That video was crazy, guys. As you may know, I take photos of everything. So when I decided, hey, I'm going to do a little video, I had a bunch of clips to use. Obviously, I was not going to spend my vacation video editing. I'm not that crazy. But we were in different places in Japan, which we took a bullet train to, which you would be on the train for like an hour, 2 hours, 2.5 hours. So during that time, I had my wife's MacBook Air, and so I edited the video on it. And actually, it wasn't too bad. It was pretty smooth process, but I did put together a video, which is pretty cool. Does Sony still sell Walkmans in the United States in 2019? I do not know. However, I must say that it was very, very sad and disappointing at the Walkman exhibit when they got into like 2015 or 2000, the early 2000s. And they're just widescreen iPod type devices with touch screens. There's nothing innovative about them at all. They're just like very plain looking, no physical buttons. I took some pictures of them, but I'm like, that's not cool. That's pretty lame. So there were a lot of cool devices there, but definitely not the same. And it was just like, I don't know. It was a little sad to look at almost. But speaking of the Walkman, I did not pick this up in Japan. I just brought it down here to show you. This is a Sony Walkman, not a Walkman. I don't know if it's branded as that. Oh yeah, it is, a NetMD Walkman. This is a Minidisc Walkman. So I didn't pick this up in Japan. I just wanted to show it off because I was looking for Minidisc players when I was in Japan. I did end up finding one, which I'll bring out now. But I did not know. I got this locally. I think it was online on eBay or something. Locally. What am I saying? And it does work, but the screen is a little cramped. It doesn't have all the features I wanted in a Walkman. That was a Minidisc player. This is the only working Minidisc player I had. Minidisc was very popular in Japan. In fact, some of the players there were still going for $70, $80. So they were not cheap to pick up. But what I did find was this Minidisc player. Let me get together here. And the reason I picked this up is you'll see it's on a little stand. Isn't that cool? So this is about $30. It's not a Sony. It's a Kenwood model. It's one of the later ones. It comes out of the little dock here. This is a Kenwood DMC T55 MDLP, so it's the Minidisc long play format. Thanks, Greg, and thanks again. I mean, jeez, thanks again, man. Have a good night as well. Yeah, I'll check out the chat when I can. Yeah, so this is a pretty cool little Minidisc player, and this is what a Minidisc looks like. In case you haven't seen it, it looks like a floppy disk, but it's not. It's a magneto-optical device, and yeah, so it's a Minidisc player. It works. It has this little stand, which is cool. Unfortunately, the stand doesn't work. The speakers don't work. It does seem to want to work, but it'll like charge it and stuff. But yeah, there's no speaker sounds. I don't know if there's a bad capacitor in there or something. But yeah, I was attracted to this. There were a lot in the case in Akihabara that I saw. They were very expensive. There were Sony ones for around $50, $60, and I'm thinking to myself, I don't really have that many Minidisc stuff. I just wanted to come home with one because like I was in the land of Minidiscs, so might as well pick one up while I was there. And I saw this. It was a little cheaper than the other ones. It doesn't record. It's just a player. But I found out that this one has recording capabilities built in. So at least I have one machine that can record. And I did get a replacement battery for this because the batteries they call gum stick batteries because it was about the size of a chewing gum stick. Yeah, I'll make the video, Craig. Next month when the payment goes through. Yeah, so it's pretty cool. You put it on the dock, it charges, and obviously it's portable, so you could take it around with you. But what I liked about this is, oops, I clicked on something. Hopefully I didn't kill the stream by clicking the mouse. No, I did not. Okay. What I liked about this is, unlike the Sony player, which has a very small screen to read the text and the track title and stuff like this, more like a traditional Minidisc player, this Kenwood has a remote that plugs into it. So this little remote here has two lines of text that can be displayed, which is pretty cool. Has some control buttons there, so you have play, pause, next, last, and repeat menu volume, and then your headphones plug into here. But it's this nice little remote, and so I thought this was really cool with the dock, and so it was like $30 or so. If it didn't come with the dock, I probably would not have picked it up, but this was essentially in the shelf like this in the store, and it looked very enticing. Came with the power cord here, so I picked it up. So I was very glad to find that little Minidisc player. Don't have too much to go through left. Oh, here's the little battery. So here's the gum stick battery, they call them. This is a new one I got off eBay because the one that came with that unfortunately was dead. Yeah, I have one of the remotes for the iPod, and yeah, it doesn't have a little display on that. Yeah, Techmoan did an awesome video on Minidisc. If you don't follow Techmoan, Techmoan on YouTube, Go check that out. He did an awesome mini disc video, and that really got me into the format. I heard about it kind of before, but I didn't really know anything about it. It wasn't really popular in the United States, so but in other countries it was. So he did an awesome video on it. So go check that out if you haven't. I'm obviously a huge fan of his work. Speaking of TV tuners, you may have seen this on my Instagram. I saw this in a store, sort of had a guess of what it was, did a Google search when I got back home, and kicked myself for not buying it then and there. So the next thing I did was walked right back to the store and picked it up. This is about $15. This is a TV tuner adapter for the Nintendo DS. And so this will work on the Nintendo DS and the Nintendo 3DS. Look at these cool antennas that pop out. And they're adjustable here. Now, I will be doing a video on this. This only works in Japan because it's a digital broadcast antenna. So it does still work today. But I guess the signals and the frequencies are only compatible with the Japanese broadcasts. So this does not work in the United States, but I was very happy to get this. I did bring my Nintendo 3DS with me, so let me just show you how that plugs in. So it goes into the cartridge slot. It's quite a weird thing. Yeah, this is for the DS. So you plug this in like this. It has this sort of latch that keeps it in there, and then this comes up. This has the antenna in it, and you can move these about as you see fit, and you could actually adjust this. Now it's very finicky, and by that I mean if you mess around with the antenna too much, the software will freeze. You're going to have to probably take the cartridge out, put it back in, and reset it, restart the system. I don't know if that's a common issue or that's just what I was experiencing on mine. Also, this was meant for the I think the DS Lite, not the 3DS, or maybe it was the DSi, whatever. It was made for an earlier version of the Nintendo DS, but it does work on the 3DS. So maybe that's the issue I'm having, is it's not sitting like too snugly in the cartridge slot, which was why I'm having those issues. But really cool. I was very excited to find this once I realized what it was. There was also a Sony PSP version of this that I did pick up. Very small device. Does something similar. You can watch TV on it. I didn't bring my PSP with me, so I wasn't able to take advantage of testing that out. But I think I have a PSP somewhere. I might have sold it. But if I do, I'll do a little video, I guess, on that. See if that works. Yeah. I am very curious if I could transmit anything to this as well. There is an antenna jack on here, but it's just a reception jack. So there's nothing that I can, not like the AV input port on the Game Gear. But I might be able to get something to be broadcast on it. The problem is that this is a digital tuner, from what I understand. I don't think there's any analog connectivity or circuitry in here. So it's expecting a digital signal. So I don't know how I could broadcast a digital signal to this. So I'd have to think on that. But it worked in Japan. I was happy to get some footage of it. I won't spoil it for you. I have a video coming up about that, but I wanted to show that off. Alright, let's see what else is in here. This is a Super Game Boy. This was about $4 from Book Off in Japan. This allows you to play your Game Boy games on a Super Nintendo. And yeah, this was just something. I have a Super Game Boy. I have a Super Game Boy 2 that only came out in Japan. I got one maybe 2 years ago. I was going to do a video on it right before I was about to post that video. I think the gaming historian did a video on it and sort of took the wind out of my sails, and I'm like, you know what, I'm not doing that anymore. But that was a good lesson. That spawned this channel. I used to do a video game channel, but there's too many people doing that, so I thought, what do I know best? Mac stuff. So that's what I did. So that's why I'm here now. But yeah, so this is a Super Game Boy. Nothing too special about it. It was $4. I'm like, okay, that's a good price. Oh, cool. Thanks. Let's see. Yeah, so I don't think that the digital broadcast signals in Japan, they're not encrypted Maybe they are, I don't know. But I'm guessing they're not encrypted. But they do, they have a huge DVR market there. So you could go to pretty much any electronics store in Japan, spend $200 to $300 to $400, get a DVR that has antenna ports in it that record on Blu-ray discs or a hard drive. It's really cool. I really wanted one last time I was there in 2015, but then I realized the antenna input is the only thing you could record from. Now that's fine if you live in Japan and you're getting over-the-air, high quality HD or 4K, content. And I say 4K only because I saw a 4K recorder, so I'm assuming maybe they're preparing for that. I don't know if they could do that currently. Maybe they can. I just don't know. So I thought that was really cool, but I wasn't going to spend $300 on a recorder that would not work in my country, just because I was envious of a Blu-ray recorder. So, yeah, Super Game Boy. That was cool. Getting to the bottom of the bin here, but I have like one or two other things to show after this bin. How long have we been going here for a bit? Oh, geez. Almost an hour, yeah. So I'm trying not to keep you guys too long. Another thing I picked up, that these are more expensive in the United States. They go for about $20. This is about $6. This is a mouse for the Super Nintendo. So the Super Nintendo had some programs like Mario Paint and others that used a mouse as your way to play the game. So this was cool. I have one somewhere, but I thought, you know what, I always see these at video game stores, and at least in the United States they command a bit of a high price. So for $6, I'm like, you know what, I'll pick that up. Let's see, what else do I got here? Oh, these were cool. These, I think, were only released in Japan. So I'll show these off in a second. Just catching up on the chat, sorry. Always hard doing a live stream. I'm like, my attention's divided. I'll recommend the mic I have. I was gifted this mic by a very generous friend who no longer needed it and gave me this mic. The microphone I'm using is a Blue Yeti. It's this big old thing here. You don't have to use something this fancy. It was literally given to me, so that's what I'm using. I used to have a little Logitech stick microphone that was like $20, and it was pretty good. And yeah, so that's the microphone I use. Final Cut Pro was a little difficult to use at first, but I was used to the old versions of Final Cut Pro from like the Mac OS 9 days, and I've been using iMovie since the Mac OS 9 days, so it's not too much of a jump. There's some great video tutorials on YouTube if you want to learn that. Video game channel, I'm curious about your collection. Yeah, so I have a few brothers, and when we would have birthdays or whatever, we'd sometimes get video games and stuff like that. So when everyone sort of moved out of the house, I sort of retained a lot of the video game stuff. Like I said, growing up, we mostly had Sega things, so I have a lot of Sega systems. I showed the bin of Game Gears I have. Maybe you missed that, but a bin of Sega Game Gears. So yeah, I have a lot of interesting stuff video game wise. I was gonna do a channel on that, so that's sort of why I was like, oh, I have this stuff, let me do that. And then Mac stuff became the priority, so that's what I'm doing now. But yeah, so I got that mouse. This was something really cool. Who knows what a gachapon is? So the best way I could describe this is like a little vending machine. You put coins in, you turn a knob, and you get something out in like a little plastic bubble. It's kind of like this. You may see them at grocery stores if you're in the United States or in other countries. Usually they're like little cheapo children's toys, candy, weird little junk like that. But in Japan, they took this to a whole different level. And this is something that they have all different types of anime characters, movie tie-ins, video game stuff. I even saw one that dispensed little knickknacks and gizmos for an Arduino. So I actually did one of those. It was in Akihabara, of course. I have no idea what I'm going to do with that part. I have no idea what it does. But I had to try it. So this is a Sega gachapon, and I probably spent way too much trying for different types of these than I'm likely to admit. But what's inside of them are these little pouches. And so this is a Sega Saturn pouch. It's meant to hold like I don't know, something small. Maybe change or a wallet or something. But they're just little pouches, and they come in these little things. So the idea is you put your money in. I think these were about $3 each, so they're not that cheap. And you turn it and you get a random one. So another one I got was a Sega Genesis controller. So that was pretty cool. And so like I said, they're little pouches. They have a little zipper on there. This is a small one. But I used one of these in Japan to keep my change in. So that was cool. Yeah, so let's see if getting your content to upload stuck at 97%. That's annoying. Make sure your web browser is updated, and make sure you're not using the built-in content uploader from like iMovie or Final Cut Pro. Whenever I use one of those, it gets stuck for no reason and it just stops. I just export it and manually upload it. Make sure your internet speed is pretty good. If you don't have good internet, go over someone's house, friend's house, go to a business, a Starbucks, a library somewhere. See if you get better luck there. But keep trying. Don't give up. Yeah, so I got a few of these. I got some extras, so I'm gonna give those away to a friend. But oh, forgot to mention these. This one looks like it's burned in a little bit. These were, from what I understand, only released in Japan. That's why I picked them up. They were $15 each, and I was like, kind of like, you know what? Do I really want to do this? Then I looked on eBay. They were a little more, and I'm like, you know what? I'm here. The exchange rate's in my favor. Let me pick them up. These are pocket stations for the PlayStation. So these were released for the original PlayStation. They're sort of like the Sega Dreamcast's VMU. I don't have one here. But basically, you can play little games on them. I believe, yeah, there's a little infrared adapter here. The idea is you can play little games versus each other. I got two. One is clear. Here, let me hold it up, let it focus. One is clear, one is white. And they're really little cool devices. I only heard of them in magazines when I was growing up. I don't think they were ever released in the United States, or if they were pretty much unknown. The Japanese writing on here says there are scratches on the LCD screen. And I don't really care. Like, alright, they're scratched. If it's going to cost me less to get them, I might as well get the scratched ones, because I'm just going to play around with them. But I really like the clear one. I think... Now, honestly, I really don't know a lot about them, but I think the idea was that you could actually plug... Oh, here, let me Google this before I speak uneducated about them. Where's my phone? Oh yeah, the little Pokemon mini ones. I remember that. I had a yellow Pikachu one back in the day. Those are really cool. Let's see. Pocket Station. Somebody could probably beat me on Wikipedia. But I think it actually plugs into the memory card slot. I just want to confirm that. Oh yeah, okay, so you can do that. Yeah, so, because it looks like it was the same on the bottom here. But you could plug these into the memory card slot, and I guess you could download games to them and stuff. So, like I said, I think the support was limited in the United States, or just non-existent. But in Japan, there were quite a few things for them. But I think they were trying to sort of... I'm trying to think of when this came out, because the Dreamcast had them, but that was 1999. Okay, yeah, so these were released January 23rd, 1999 in Japan. So the Dreamcast came out in September of 1999 in the United States. Let's see when it came out in Japan, because all I'm trying to think of is who had the idea first. Did Sony swipe it from Sega, or what? Okay, wow. Okay, so the Dreamcast came out in November of 1998 in Japan. So this came out a few months later for the Sony PlayStation. So it may have well been a reaction from Sony to come out with something that was kind of like the Dreamcast VMU. So pretty cool. Yeah, these were really neat. So I picked those up, even if they're broken. Another thing I picked up, again, something ridiculously cheap in Japan, but for whatever reason in the United States it was more expensive. This was about $2. This is a Nintendo 64 transfer pack. It's used for the Nintendo 64 system, and what it's designed to do is you plug this into the controller of your Nintendo 64, and then you plug in a Game Boy game. And that Game Boy game could be something like Pokemon. If you're going to use that with Pokemon Stadium on the Nintendo 64, that let you transfer your Pokemon and all this stuff. But it was also used for other games. There were a lot of little exclusive like mini games or extra characters or whatever you could get either on the Game Boy game or on the Nintendo 64 equivalent game by using one of these devices. I have one or two of them, but I figured for $2, hopefully I can fit this in my luggage and bring it home. So that is that's something cool that I picked up. Got some other games here. These were nothing too special. These are just Japanese equivalent of Star Wars games for the Nintendo 64. I really like the box art on these. I had a chance to buy Shadows of the Empire, which is a really great game, by the way, boxed for the Nintendo 64, but they wanted like $50. This was somewhere at a store locally. It wasn't in Japan, where I saw that box, and I'm like, you know, I don't need the box. I could look up the box online. But these are the cartridges, and the box art was pretty cool on the cartridges. And yeah, so I thought that was cool. One was $5, one was $9. I figured I'd pick them up. Why not? That transfer pack does work with other games. I think like Mario Golf is one of them. What's that other one? Perfect Dark, I think, is another that uses the transfer pack. Not a lot of games used it, but Pokemon is the one that most people probably remember. Oh, so in those thrift stores, sometimes if you spend a certain amount of money, you get what they call no tax. So you don't have to pay the tax on your purchase. So sometimes I was like $1 or $2 off of that price, and I'm like, you know what, I would rather not pay the $10 in tax or whatever I'm accumulating. So I pick up little things like memory cards. So here's just a GameCube memory card, $2.50. So that was a little goodie there. Yes, the Game Boy emulator on the Pokemon Stadium game. Yes, it only worked for Pokemon games. Yeah, Mickey's Speedway was another. Yeah. Let's see. Last thing I have in the bin here is Sonic Drift. The reason I picked this up, there's a little story behind why I always wanted this, but I found the game, and in the same store, I found the manual, and I had to pay separately, but the game was about $7, the manual was about $2, and the manuals are cool. They're these little tiny things here. So this is for the Sega Game Gear, and what's cool is I always wanted this game, and this game was only released overseas. It was not released in the United States. Sonic Drift 2 was released in the United States. All this is a racing game, and you know, it's, when I was a kid, anything Sonic related for the Game Gear, I had to have it. So my mother was traveling for business one year, and I think she was in, I think it was Hong Kong or China or somewhere, and she asked us if there was anything she wanted us to look out for. She knew we'd like video games and stuff. And at the time, we had a Sega Saturn, and a game called Sonic Jam came out, which was basically a compilation of Sonic the Hedgehog 1, 2, and 3 on a Sega Saturn disc. So you could play I thought I turned on Do Not Disturb. Anyway, so that's a compilation of things. But also on that disc, they put a lot of like museum type stuff, little videos, history things. So on that disc, you could read about games that didn't come out in the United States. And that's where I learned about Sonic Drift. So when she asked if was there anything that we wanted, I said, yes. If you see Sonic Drift, get it. So she was at a game store. They had Sonic Drift. But when she asked the game clerk if it could play on a United States console, he said he didn't know, and maybe he could find an adapter, because there are adapters for like the Super Nintendo or whatever that let you play a foreign game in a United States system. He couldn't find an adapter, so she didn't buy the game. What's heartbreaking about that is the Game Gear doesn't need an adapter. I didn't know this. She didn't know that. The clerk at the store didn't know it. But the Game Gear does not need an adapter to play non-US releases. So that is something that I didn't know. Obviously, I found out years later. But I played it through emulation and stuff like that. But yeah, that's why I picked up Sonic Drift. I thought it was really cool. So we're just about done here. I do have some things to show off. They're bulky, so they're down here on the floor. Who knows what a Laserdisc is? I should have shown these while Greg was still here, but he could rewind them, and I think he saw some of these while I was in Japan. So, all this stuff is going to fall off the desk. I did not plan this out correctly. Put you back there. So, Laserdisc was an analog video format that came out that was superior to VHS in picture quality and sound quality. They weren't really popular in the United States. By the time they got here, well, no, they were here from the beginning, but by the time they gained popularity, DVD was coming out and it just killed it. So, wasn't really popular in the United States, but whenever I travel, I always look out for Laserdiscs because I'm a big dork. And last time I was in Japan, I picked up a handful of Laserdiscs. I only saw one or two, but we didn't really travel outside of Tokyo. This time we went to Kyoto and we went to Osaka, and most of these I picked up in Osaka. Oh no, I'm sorry, in Kyoto. And yeah, so I had to lug these around. These are not all of them I got. I think I got maybe like a dozen or something like that. Yeah, Disco Vision was one of the names for it. And yes, the problem was that people during the 80s and 90s were buying VCRs for a few $100s. Why would they want to buy a few $100 or pay a few $100s more for a system that couldn't record? People were thinking, oh, I have a VCR, I'm going to record programs off of that. What do I need a Laserdisc for? Also, TVs were small. The picture quality wasn't the best always. People were still used to over-the-air antenna stuff. So the extra lines of resolution on a Laserdisc, you didn't really notice that if you had a small TV, especially if you weren't a videophile guy who was like obsessed with video quality and stuff. When those big CRT TVs came out and the big rear projection TVs came out, Laserdisc got more popular because the image was bigger. You're going to see more quality or lack thereof when you're watching something. But yeah, unfortunately, it wasn't that popular. They were going to try and make recordable stuff, but I think it just died out. Yeah, yeah, I have Toy Story on Laserdisc. It actually looks pretty damn good. Almost as good as the DVD. So, let me get to what I found. First, what I found were LD singles. So these are small Laserdiscs. So, a Laserdisc is a standard Laserdisc is the size of a vinyl record. So these are much smaller. These are, I think they're about 8 inches. This says 20 centimeters. This is a sampler disc. So what this is just highlighting some blockbuster movies at the time. We have The Beatles' Yellow Submarine, Police Academy 4, Little Shop of Horrors. So some movies here. This is volume 2. I only have like 2 or 3 little discs like this. So whenever I see one, it's pretty cool to find one. What's nice is yeah, this one has it. They usually come in like this little cloth sleeve. Yes, Technology Connections did an excellent Laserdisc little documentary series. I actually, for the longest time, wanted to do a Laserdisc documentary, and he covered all the bases, so I didn't have to do that. And then Tecmo did an awesome one on Muse Laserdisc, which was high definition Laserdisc from 1993. Go give that video a watch. It's a 2-parter. It's really cool. He has some great quality clips in there. Yeah, so this is a small Laserdisc here, and you can see how reflective that is. It's bigger than a CD. Let's get a CD in here. Let's compare that. So here's a CD, and here's a Laserdisc. So you can see the CD can easily be dwarfed by the Laserdisc. A Beatles fan. I like them too. So yeah, so this is a pretty neat little disc. You can actually like see the pits, not really, but you can kind of see like the pits and grooves on here, which is pretty cool. So we'll put that back in the little sleeve. I haven't played these yet. I hope they work, because I will be not watching the whole thing, but I'll be skimming through them. Okay, let me put this back in the little sleeve here. Yeah, so this was like $2, no brainer. Picked it up. As you can imagine, at this point, my luggage was quite heavy. Yeah, I was smart enough not to buy any Muse stuff or try and get that working. It was tempting to try and do that one day. I think I commented on his Patreon or his YouTube saying like, "Oh, I wanted to do that. I'm glad you did it instead." And he said something to the effect of, "You're a very smart man for not doing what I did and buying a bunch of like temperamental Muse Laserdisc stuff." So yeah, some of the discs I picked up. These were stupid cheap. Some of them. This was $1. This is The Fugitive with Harrison Ford. One of my favorite movies. This has the obi, which is a little piece of paper that is just like a little bookmark or something. It's not glued. It's just attached here, just folded. What that would do is advertise different movies that was coming out. Oh, thanks. Yeah, see ya. Yeah, it would give you some additional information about the disc. There are different languages. Advertise the fact it was live streamed, something widescreen, stuff like that. So yeah, this is a Fugitive on Laserdisc. I got another small Laserdisc here. Again, $2. Whitney Houston, #1 video hits. Story behind the Apple hat. I got this early 2000s when I visited the Apple headquarters. I think it was like 2004, 2005. So I've had this for a long time. I don't know if they sell them anymore. So that's where I got the hat from. This is an anime. I have no idea what it is. I did look it up because I have a Laserdisc database account. So I keep track of the Laserdiscs I have. But the reason I didn't pick this up, I picked this up not because it's an anime. I don't care what this is. This is why I picked it up. It's a rental disc. And so I've heard of rental discs before. So this is a Laserdisc that was made exclusively for the rental market. So you would rent a disc and you would have to return it to the store. But it says rental disc on the obi here, which was neat. This is the first time I've ever seen this. So I was like bugging out. This was like $1 at a store that was selling them for $1. There's also a rental disc stamp over here on the cover, but that's not all. If you look at the disc, instead of silver, it is gold. So let's try and take this out here. Look at that. You can see all of its gold reflective goodness. And on the disc itself, it also has this little red label. It's hard to see. It says rental disc. So to my knowledge, this is the only rental Laserdisc that I own. So I was thrilled to pick this up, and it's definitely something unique that I don't know if they have them in the United States, or if they did, they weren't that popular, or maybe I just don't own one. But that was really cool. I was very excited to find this rental disc. Another thing I picked up, again $1. This was Alien on Laserdisc. This is the CAV AC3 Dolby Digital surround sound release of Alien, which is pretty cool. But what really made me pick this up is this little sticker, or the obi imprint here, and this says 15th anniversary of Laserdisc. Thank you. I just thought that was really cool. So I'm like, you know what? Alien's not a bad movie. Let me pick up the Laserdisc. Yeah, I don't think that's actual gold. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's a plating. I have no idea. Next Laserdisc I want to show you guys is Back to the Future. Tecmone has a VHD, I think, or maybe it's Laserdisc, of this hanging up in his office. This, unfortunately, is the pan and scan version. It's not the widescreen version of Back to the Future. But I have the widescreen United States Laserdisc, so I don't need that. But just look at the cover. That's just really cool. So I think that was, a pretty neat find. Has the obi on there and everything. So it's not too fancy of a release, but I like the cover. Now these were intriguing to me. I probably shouldn't have bought all of them. Kind of feel stupid for buying all of them. But the Laserdisc database did not have a lot of information about the next discs I'm going to show you. So I bought them because I want to try and input that information into the catalog. They didn't have photos of all of them, so I wanted to take some photos. These are in the category of what they call BGMs. I'm sorry, BGVs. I'm looking right at it and I can't say it. Background video. So essentially, these are like scenic scenes, I guess, scenic videos, and they play music in the background. That's all this is. And you know what? These were the most expensive discs. The movies were like $1. These were $5. So, I mean, maybe they're that popular overseas. I have no idea, but there were a bunch of them. I picked up this one because obviously it's the best. It says right there on the label. So it was a bit silly buying them. A lot of them were not cataloged, so I just bought them just to try and catalog them. A lot of them were scenes of Japan, so I thought, okay, that's pretty neat. You know, that's a little bit of a unique thing to get while I'm in Japan. Might as well get some Japanese travelogue laser discs here. So I think that's pretty cool. Those are some of the laser discs I picked up. Oh yeah, I remember that about the Bugs Life movie. So the comment is, did you know the Bugs Life was the only movie that had separate renders for 4:3 and 16:9 aspect ratios so that the characters fit in the frame, so they moved them when they were making the film instead of doing a pan and scan thing. Yes, I remember reading that. So Bugs Life came out, I think that was 97, 98, something like that, 1998. And yeah, so I remember getting the DVD, and it was a double-sided DVD. They used to do that. So one side was full screen, one side was widescreen. And yeah, they actually restaged the animation in most of the shots so you wouldn't miss anything, which was pretty cool. Thankfully, the movie, I think after that, widescreen was pretty much more accepted and they, just stopped doing that. But I wanted to get Bugs Life on Laserdisc, but I think it was only released in Japan or somewhere else. And I'm not going to shell out the money for it. I have Toy Story on Laserdisc. I have a Bugs Life on Blu-ray, I think. So I think I have the DVD at least. So I don't need that. But it was interesting that there was 2 separate renders that they did for that. I forgot about that. Thanks for the reminder, Ryan. So yeah, those are the Laserdiscs I got. Last 2 things I want to show you. This is a Game Boy camera. And the only reason I picked it up, it was atomic purple. So this clear purple Game Boy camera matches the clear purple Game Boy Colors that came out. I don't even know if I have one of those. But it's pretty neat. There are still photos on it. I do have a method of downloading those photos, so I'll have to do that. But I don't know, I just thought it looked cool. I have a few of these. This obviously, I'm sort of a sucker for like clear plastic electronics. So yeah, I'm a sucker for that. Let's see if it turns on. I have to clean the contacts on this so it's not turning on 100%. I had to work before, but of course I had to pull it out. Nope. We'll play with that another day. But yeah, so that was cool to pick up. Oh, these I also got at that guy's Ken Ken store in Akihabara. These were like $1. These are S-video cables for the Sega Saturn. Again, just something that is a little more difficult to find in the United States. For $1, all right, sure. I don't even think I had it as video cable for the Sega Saturn. I think I only had a composite video cable. So that was cool to find. So last, certainly not least, the item that was probably most expensive during my trip. Who knows what a laser active is? For those of you who don't know, a laser active was a Laserdisc player that had a module compartment where you could plug in things to enhance the Laserdisc experience. So you could play video games on it. If you had a certain pack, there was a karaoke pack, stuff like that. And yeah, so long story short, I bought a laser active player on eBay years ago. Unfortunately, it was not packed correctly. It kind of got destroyed. It doesn't really work. I was able to keep it, paying a lowered price because I really didn't want to ship it back, and I thought maybe I could get it to work. And yeah, the laser active was just a huge amount of money for what you were getting. You could literally buy a Laserdisc player and a Sega Genesis or whatever for a lower cost than this monstrosity. When I bought that laser active player, I thought, great, I'm getting a laser active player. and it came with one of the packs that you plug in to allow you to play games like Sega Genesis games. So it came with the Sega pack, and the guy said he thought it worked. Well, the capacitors are notorious for going bad on these Laserdisc players, the laser actives, and the packs. So they can be extremely hard to find a working one. So I was in the hard off store in Japan, in the junk section, and I'll recreate the scene exactly what I saw in the display at the hard off. This is what I saw. A Sega laser active Sega Genesis pack with the controller. It was expensive. It was roughly almost $300. Very expensive, I know. I took quite a gamble on this because I did not know if it was going to work. And these are notorious for not working. The reason I did end up buying this was because of the controller. These are stupid hard to find because of that laser active branding on there. So, wow, you did stay awake. Good job, Stanley. So, yeah, this, I mean, I literally was pacing back and forth in the store. I left the store for a while, came back an hour later. I'm like, do I really want to buy this? If it doesn't work, I can't return it. There's no way for me to test it. So, when I went back to the store to, look through the glass at this again, I asked the person in very broken Japanese what the label meant. So everything at that junk part of the store has a label that, unfortunately, I didn't get it. I'd have a picture of it, though. And the label explains what the problem is, or if it was being able to be tested, or what the case is. So the sticker on this label essentially said they do not have the equipment to test it, so it's untested. And so I thought, okay, well, it's not tested. It's hard to come across on video, but this is in immaculate condition. I got one before that was shipped to me that was all beat up. The labels are beautiful on this. It even has a little back plate, a little plastic protective plate for the port, because this is how it plugs into the laser active player. Yeah, so the laser active was a huge failure. That's what I was trying to get at. But anyway, how this works is you take a Sega Genesis game. Obviously, you plug this into the laser active thing. You plug a Genesis game into it, and then you have your controllers for the Sega Genesis. So I ended up buying it, obviously, because I have it here. I brought it home. I never really had a chance to test my laser active unit because the Laserdisc portion of it does not spin. I can't play movies on it. So I'm like, should I test this out? I just watched the whole Retro Man Cave series of recapping these and the laser active player itself. I'm like, should I test it? Should I take the risk? Is it going to break the pack that may work if the player's not, recapped or anything? So I'm like, you know what? I paid the money for it. You plug it in. Let me test it. To my surprise, it works beautifully. It works. I was so excited. There was one that I saw on eBay right after I bought this for the same exact price from the United States that was recapped fully, but it was beat up. So I'm like, what's the chance here that this is going to work? Did I make a bad decision? Thankfully, it worked. Like I said, that controller was really the icing on the cake. That was probably worth $100 or so. So I was very glad to get that working. I will have to recap it. I will have to do that because I'm sure the caps are rotting in here. Unless it was already recapped, which I have no idea. Who knows? Maybe this was from someone that did that. I cannot tell unless I open it up. But I was so relaxed, not relaxed, but like relieved to know that worked. So that was the most expensive thing I bought in Japan. And I was like nervous the entire time. Because I don't spend a lot of money on these things. These were all like, I mean, it adds up, but these were all like 50 cents, $1, $2, $5, $10. So that's that's most of the geeky stuff I picked up in Japan. There's some little things that I didn't bring down that are probably still in my luggage somewhere or wherever I took it out. But this is the majority of the cool stuff that I found in Japan. So I've been going for over an hour here, so I'm going to open it up to some questions. If you guys have any questions or anything about this or about anything else, and then I'll close it because it's past midnight here, at least where I am. So I don't want to keep anybody up too much longer, especially these people who are fighting to stay awake. So I'll leave it open to questions. I'll take a second to read the chat here, see if I missed anything. Oh, the Philips CDI. Oh, yeah, I have a Philips CDI. It's not cool. It's pretty bad. I also have a 3DO. I have some weird video game consoles. Hey, Greg. Yeah. Now the other Greg's here. Yeah, sorry. I was doing this since like 11 p.m. But I'm glad OBS hopefully has been working pretty well. I'm recording this as I'm streaming this, so the computer here is hopefully up to the task. Okay, I'm glad it's earlier where you guys are. I'm still well rested, still awake, but probably won't be for much longer. So yeah, any questions you guys have, put them into the chat. I'll try and answer them. I have to make some room here. I can't even type on the keyboard here. I should have put everything back in the bin that I took it out of. That was my first mistake. Have you ever emulated or interacted with a Lisa? No, I have not. I think the oldest non-Apple product I have is like the Apple II. I'm sorry, non-Macintosh product I have is the Apple II. I have an Apple III. I do not have a Lisa. I've never seen one in person. I've done Apple II emulators and stuff like that, but I've never really played around with that. No, I've never seen one. I've seen one in a museum, but not. Yeah, I see that studio mode button. I'm sort of tempted to hit it, but I don't know what it's gonna do. Yeah, so I'm using my Mac Pro right now, and the GPU level, CPU activity has been fairly low. So I'm streaming and recording at the same time. I hope the quality is good, guys. Hopefully. It's only streaming out in 720p, but I mean that's what I have set it up right now. Yeah. So, all right. If there's no more questions, I'll give you guys another minute or two, but I'll wrap this up. I guess I'll talk about some projects I'm working on before I do. I just released an unboxing video for Macintosh Plus. That was really fun to do. I have a SCSI 2SD card video that I'm going to be doing. And I have another follow-up to the Macintosh Plus video. I also have a follow-up to the iMac video I did, which was for some reason insanely popular. I have like 10,000 views on that, which is insane. So that is something that I'm going to revisit. I want to talk about the peripherals, how USB was such a game changer on the Mac, and what you needed to do if you had some old Apple stuff like a printer or a mouse or a joystick or something, and you still need to use that on your iMac. What were some of the solutions? So I want to do that. I think that'll be a fun video. Ah, okay. Yeah, I'll play around with that, Greg. I want you to run a Macintosh Plus. I have a Macintosh Plus, so I'll be messing around with that more. Do you have a USB to SCSI converter? I do not. From what I hear, the the FireWire to SCSI converters are better, but they're still problematic. I never owned one. A relative did. They bought one for their iMac G3 DV. They had an Iomega Jazz drive, and they wanted to use that with their iMac, so they bought the adapter. It never really worked. I mean, this was back in the OS 9 days. Who knows why it didn't work. But I see them on eBay for stupid expensive prices, like over $200. I'd love to play around with that, but I'm not going to spend that much on a stupid adapter that probably won't work. So I know there are some USB ones out there, but if I have to use SCSI, I have plenty of machines that have built-in SCSI or SCSI cards. So I use that. It's less variables. I mean, when you mess around with SCSI stuff anyway, there's a lot of variables that are fighting you to make it not work. The SCSI ID, if you got the drivers correctly, if you turn on the device when the machine turned on, if the SCSI device itself is still working. So yeah, it's probably a pain. I still have some PowerPC Macs that have SCSI cards in them, so I think I'm all right in that regard. It would be kind of cool just to for ease of use, being able to use it on a modern machine. But then there's a whole driver situation. I don't know how that works. I mean, I doubt it's plug and play 100%. So if I ever find one pretty cheap, I'll pick one up. But cool. Well, I guess that's gonna about wrap it up here. I don't even know for how long I've been streaming because my windows are all over each other here, and I don't have a lot of space for my mouse here. But thank you guys that those of you who stuck around. I certainly appreciate it, and that's really about it. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter. You can see what I'm doing between streams. I do have some upcoming videos. Hopefully I'll get some stuff shot before next week. I don't know when I'll release that yet. If you want to support the channel, it's greatly appreciated. I think $1 is my lowest tier on Patreon. If you do subscribe to the channel and you support it on Patreon, you get a lot of extras that you won't see anywhere else. Behind the scenes stuff, extra clips, longer versions of videos, exclusive links, archives of old live streams and stuff like that. I really try and put a lot of exclusive stuff into that. So, I mean, it's only $1 a month. It helps support the channel. There are other tiers. You get some other cool things too, but that's my plug. Helps me find cool items like this, especially the old Mac stuff, and show them off. So that's really about it, but I appreciate you guys for joining me today. And yes, you could catch me every Thursday on Mac Yak. There's a podcast that we do. It's a great group of people. Go to Mac, search for Mac Yak on Facebook, MAC space YAK, and you'll see their Facebook page every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern. So adjust that for your time zone. The show's about 2 hours. Me, Greg, the other Greg, Jay, and Mike and Rocky were the hosts of that show, and we have a lot of fun. We have some cool guests on. Ken from the Computer Clan was on it not too long ago, so be sure to do that. I'm privileged to be a Mac Yacker, so I try and make it every Thursday. So if you can't get enough of these live streams, we do that video podcast live. It's on YouTube. There's a live chat. It's a lot of fun, so consider doing that. I'm going to put the website link in the YouTube chat box. I guess I could have just asked Greg to do it because he's here. But yeah, you could either click on the Mac Yak name in the chat there, or just go to the link I sent you and subscribe to that. But that's pretty cool. So I love doing that. It's a lot of fun, and I hope you guys join us there. So that's about it. Otherwise, I'll keep talking, and nobody will be able to go to sleep. So have a good night, and I'll see you around. So thanks for watching, and I'm going to awkwardly click this end stream button. So see you later.